Hello, and welcome to Global Data Themes Instant Insights. At Global Data, we define a theme as something that keeps a CEO awake at night, as businesses that invest in important themes will succeed, and those that don't will fail. Hello, and welcome to Instant Insights. I'm Emma Taylor, and today I'll be talking to Research Director Charlotte Dunlap and her colleague, Principal Analyst Amy DeCarlo at Global Data. We're going to be talking about how digital transformation has left a lot of organizations with a lack of internal expertise and resources. So Amy, could you define reskilling and upskilling for us? What do these terms mean? What do they consist of?
So they are primarily categories of training to help employees meet changing corporate objectives. Upskilling and reskilling are the two categories that we're really focused on today. In upskilling, staff members are taught advanced skills that support their current job function. For example, software developers trained in a new coding language such as Dart. Reskilling is training for an employee that demonstrates aptitude for a different job function, and it can be an entirely different role. So the employer would provide the coursework and labs to help somebody who might be in an accounting function transition to a security administrator role, or a graphic artist to a UX designer, so user experience design.
Right. Okay, interesting. So they're sort of variations of training. And why are we talking about these things today, Charlotte? What's happened? When did the industry first start, experiencing an issue with skills?
Yeah, sure, Emma. Amy and I have been, batting this topic around, I would say, over the last year, and have even put out a couple of papers and webinars on it. I follow technologies that enterprise developers use. And so for me, I started noticing, a few years ago that what was happening, with everybody's digital transformation or app modernization, we call it that the whole need for reskilling was kind of born out of those projects. And that happened, with the advent of advanced application architectures. So that means things like containers and microservices, which were very exciting. When they came out a few years ago, they hold a lot of promise for organizations' digital transformations. But the problem is, suddenly traditional IT ops folks are expected to have now a broad knowledge of the cloud and cybersecurity and these new app development platforms like Kubernetes and microservices and serverless. And frankly, Emma, they're ill-equipped, and they quickly learn that they need new personas throughout the modern application lifecycle.
Right, of course. Well, I mean, they sound like pretty advanced and fairly, I guess, in the scheme of things, quite niche skills. So it's unsurprising that the existing employees might not already know.
Right.
And how did the companies then respond to not having these sort of critical internal resources and expertise?
So pretty quickly, some important tools, began to emerge over these last couple or so years. So Python is probably the most obvious. And it's kind of like a general purpose programming language aimed at not developers, but sysadmins, to help them with some basic programming. And another one would be OpenStack, cloud operating system, and Terraform, for infrastructure as code. So we started to see these come along, and then a really popular one, of course, more recently, GitHub's Copilot, an autocomplete programming tool. So the point with all those is now we've got these sysadmins and low coders with better access to cloud and data dev technologies.
I would also add to this that I think that a lot of organizations, specifically in terms of cloud, their initial deployments were more ad hoc, and maybe it was project-based. And I think that organizations have recognized the fact that this is not, financially to their benefit necessarily. They need to look at things in a more holistic manner and more comprehensive across the entire enterprise. Do they have enough resources provisioned, or are they over provisioned? And a lot of these are also around security, where there've been, a very fast evolving threat environment. So focusing on the internal expertise they have, and then trying to bring them up to speed and make them understand, all of the other aspects of adjacent technologies or services that their corporate employees are using.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, this isn't a sort of a temporary phenomenon or project that's going to go away. This is a permanent digital transformation. It's only going to become more pressing, I imagine, as things like you mentioned, like the security threat landscape becomes more complicated. What do you see as the most exciting or encouraging sort of new technologies that could be available for reskilling and upskilling? Obviously, there's been a lot of talk around generative AI, perhaps creating some more sort of accessible routes.
Yeah, I love this topic. You and I have talked a lot about it, Emma, and all of us have. So when all this hit, in November, ChatGPT, I started having some kind of anecdotal conversations with friends and people on how it's going to affect them. And when I say friends and people, especially traditional sysadmins that I know. And I saw that this was pretty exciting for them because they were trying to reinvent themselves anyway and remain relevant, right? Everyone's worried about being laid off and all the job losses, and responding to the new digital era and that sort of thing. So on the weekends, these guys are doing a lot of coding, in other words, learning coding and things like that. And they'd spend a lot of time, hours, using Google to, believe it or not, to help them with coding. So when ChatGPT came out, I heard a lot of excitement, in their voices and the potential of what it could do for them in really, and for today's topic, in reskilling. And it's because these AI advancements represent this growing opportunity among developers, especially low coders and other IT personas, because it eliminates tedious and time consuming tasks, like automating the conversion of scripts and just fully eliminating baseline coding during the app development process.
Yeah, and we've seen on the security front, sort of a subcategory of AI is, and it's a little bit different, but how machine learning is informing threat intelligence and helping identify potential serious incidents versus something that is just a harmless anomaly. And so helping security administrators kind of get up to speed in how they can use this is becoming very, very important.
And on the sort of other the flip side of that security sort of question, what about the security risk there might be for using these tools for upskilling? Could there be a security risk for people embedding malware into code that's then
I think that there's a potential for that, and I think that a lot of organizations are very wary because of that. There's been a concern, generally speaking, at a high level for the last couple of years about AI use by bad actors, but also accidental, incidents. A lot of things happen that can wind up creating a vulnerability that are not done purposefully, and then that can be easily exploited. So yes, it's definitely a concern.
And going forward, what kind of guidance would you have for companies? Where should they be focusing on in this area?
Yeah, sure. I can look at to Global Data's research. So specifically, we've got some great stuff that's just come out. It's called Global Data's Job Analytics Database. And just in mine and Amy's area, the number of jobs in the cloud automation space alone has increased 6 times over the last couple of years. So specifically, top 2 skills mentioned in companies' hiring trends and their company filings have to do with application lifecycle management and application platforms and containers. So those are some key areas. Also, under that same research, most of the jobs that we're hearing from companies where they're hiring are in the field of DevOps, Kubernetes, microservices, and cloud security. And then, right below those are low code, automation, and observability. Amy and I have also done a lot of research on how the vendors are responding. And we've seen a real wave of vendors that are revamping their training and certification programs in response to this whole global shortage. And it's great because, they recognize not everybody has a computer science or a data science degree, nor do they have the time to acquire them, while they're attending to their day jobs. So flipping over to this report that Amy and I recently wrote, just to highlight a few programs that we researched and delved into. Some top ones we thought were Google Cloud Skills Boost is one such program, Red Hat Cube by Example, Cisco's DevNet, believe it or not, which used to just be aimed at, network engineers, but not any longer, and then AWS Training Catalog.
And I would add, just at a very high level, that security is obviously a key area that organizations are looking to fill in where they lack expertise. And the International Information System Security Certification Consortium, or what is known as ISC squared, projects that the number of the global security workforce will need to expand by 75% in order to meet future demand. And there are a lot of gaps. I mean, we've seen this in our own internal research. Global Data's Jobs Analytics database showed that U.S. job vacancies went from under 50,000 in 2020 to 138,000 2 years later. So, and this continues to expand. So there's a lot of work being done in this area, and there's a lot of also a focus on having security teams work more closely with dev and ops teams. So DevSecOps is becoming something that's very, very much materializing in organizations, but there's a lot of work to be done around that area. And certainly a lot of vendors are helping support those efforts with tools and training.
Amazing. Yeah. That's some really, really helpful advice, actually, firstly on where to focus your hiring as a company, but then also where you can go to develop your own schools, and then also how you can keep your company safe. So yeah, some real pearls of wisdom being dropped here. Thank you. Well, I think that's all we have time for. Thank you both so much. That was really, really interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Emma.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. And from us in Thematic Intelligence, see you next time.